Commentary on Daniel chapter 4, F027 4. Chapter 4 explains the sequence of the time frames of prophecy and the structure of the Babylonian system in that sequence. Introduction. Chapter 4 deals with the establishment of the elect in the eyes of the rulers in the system, and that they were forced to acknowledge the power of the one true God. In this chapter we see the prophecy of the 7 times in the cutting down of the tree and the binding of the stump. The 7 times is a dual prophecy of 7 years of Nebuchadnezzar, or 7 times, which is 2,520 years, and see below. At the end of the period of the empires, reason is restored to mankind, and the millennial system of the 7,000-year period is established, and the temple rebuilt. And compare the Golden Jubilee number 300, and after that we will reign forevermore, as we see in the City of God number 180. The sequence of prophecy is based on a prophetic time, which is 360 days as a prophetic time, and the 7 times that we see in verse 16 was of 7 prophetic years, and also 7 times, which was the 2,520 years on a year for a day basis under the prophetic system. The 7 times of the empire was to last for 2,520 years, from the Battle of Carchemish in 605 BCE to 1916, at the time of Jacob's trouble, commencing with the battles of the Somme and on the Western Front. The last phase of the 7 times was to be from Cambyses' invasion of Egypt in 525 BCE, as prophesied by Ezekiel, to 1996, with the end of the time of the nations or Gentiles, see below, and the last 30 years of the end of the beast system under the New World Order and UN, and the return of the Messiah. Within that period of 7 times, the persecution of the churches of God occurred under the Romans over 309 years, until the proclamation of Constantine as emperor at York in 309 CE, as mentioned in Surah 18, the cave, Q018, and which with Judah also occurred within that period over 3.5 times of 1,260 years, from 590 CE under the Holy Roman Empire to 1850, and then on through the time of Jacob's trouble, through World War I and World War II, into the Holocaust, which was 1,260 days or a time, times and half a time. The entire period is both a civil and a religious persecution, testing the obedience of the elect to God and their endurance and faith. The last half, completing the 7 years or times, will occur in the final section or phase under the rule of the beast of the New World Order or Antichrist system, from 2021 to end 2024, with the wars of the Messiah and the vials of the wrath of God for the treble harvest of 2025 under the Jubilee system. Now, time of the Gentiles. The time of the Gentiles in the Bible structure, in the Bible, refers to the nations as Gentiles, and it covers their period of rule, but in Daniel it refers to the nations under the mystery and sun cults, as established from the Babylonian system. As explained above, it is a period of 7 times. The visions were given at the beginning, so that the end might be foretold from the beginning. The wisdom of the elect is made evident from this time also, from Daniel to the present, through the Holy Spirit. Daniel 4:8-9 reads, "But at the last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee, tell me the visions of my dream, that I have seen and the interpretation thereof." Now, the 7 times are found in Daniel 4:32. This period commenced with Babylon, and the end is also of that system. Daniel 4:32 reads, "And they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will." And the period of 7 times covered 2,520 years from that system, which began in 605 BC and was consolidated in 525 BCE. That was with Cambyses' invasion of Egypt. The 7 times came to an end with the wars of 1914-18 and especially from 1916 with the battles on the Somme, and continued until the final phases in 1995-96. This process is a continual one of reorganisation. The time of the nations is now finished and the period of the end is upon us. Through this entire period, God dealt with the church among the nations. He controlled nations through other nations and prevented the rise of the complete world system so that the church could not be obliterated and the nations could be accountable. In this way, the earth was protected and kept from destruction. That period ended Nisan 1996, and the final consolidation of the New World Order began in 1997 through the beast system, using the banking and UN systems. The Church is not and has never been an international organisation. It was for this reason the Athanasian Church was formed from the Council of Constantinople in 381 CE. The Spanish-born Theodosius was appointed by Gratian as the first Athanasian emperor. All his Christian predecessors were Unitarians. They were called Arians by the Athanasians to disguise the nature of the dispute and to conceal the antiquity of the Unitarian position, which dated back to the Apostles and is the structure of the New Testament. The triune position was finally set in place in the Council of Chalcedon in 451 CE, with the position of the Holy Spirit being established and the Trinity fixed. The real aim of this church was world domination and hierarchical power. And you see also the papal Socinianism, Arianism and Unitarianism, number 1 to 85, and also dealt with in number 151. We'll read now Daniel chapter 4, beginning in verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar the king unto all people, nations and languages that dwelt in all the earth. Peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high God hath wrought towards me. How great are his signs and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in mine house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore I made a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, the soothsayers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But at the last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee, tell me the visions of my dreams that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. Thus were the visions of mine head in my bed. I saw, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. And the leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of heaven dwelt in the boughs thereof, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher, and a holy one came down from heaven. He cried aloud and said thus, Hew down the tree and cut off its branches, shake off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now thou, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof, forasmuch as all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but thou art able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in thee. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for 1 hour, and his thoughts troubled him. The king spoke and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee. Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies. The tree that thou sawest, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It is thou, O king, that art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown and reachest into heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. And whereas the king saw a watcher and a holy one coming down from heaven, and saying, Hew the tree down, and to destroy it let leave the stump of the roots thereof in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which is to come upon my lord the king, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of the heaven, and 7 times shall pass over thee, till they know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. And whereas they command to leave the stump of the tree roots, thy kingdom shall be sure unto thee. After that thou shalt have known that the heavens do rule. Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness, and thine iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquillity. All this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. And the king spoke and said, Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honour of my majesty? While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken. The kingdom is departed from thee, and they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and give it to whomsoever he will. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till the hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and my understanding returned unto me, and I blessed the Most High. I praised and honoured him that liveth for ever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand or say unto him, What doest thou? At the same time my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom mine honour and brightness returned unto me. My counsellors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honour the King of heaven. All his works are truth, and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase. Wellinger's notes on chapter 4, beginning in verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar, what follows is evidently a proclamation. It's given probably in the last of the 7 years of his madness, the same year as the degree of Astyages, Daniel being then 59. Verse 2, God, the Chaldeans Eloha, emphatic, see Appendix 4. Verse 6, to bring in all the wise men, etc., probably done from motives of state policy or acting on Daniel's own advice. A writer clever enough to be a forger would be wise enough not to leave the loophole alleged. Verse 9, master of the magicians. Daniel still held the position given him in Daniel 2:48. Verse 13, a watcher and a holy one, the figure of speech. And it means a holy angel. A watcher, a Chaldean name, Ir, for an angelic being watching over the affairs of men. Compare Daniel 4:17 and Daniel 4:23. Not the same root as in Daniel 9:14. Verse 15, the stump of his roots, his root trunk. Tender grass, herbage, wet, drenched. Verse 16, let his heart, etc. The figure here changes from a tree to that of a beast, mentioned in Daniel 4:15. Man's Chaldeans Anasha, Appendix 14. 7 times the inscription states that there were several years in which Nebuchadnezzar did nothing. Verse 19, 1 hour, Chaldee, a moment, as Daniel 4:33, Daniel 3:6, Daniel 3:15, Daniel 5:5. Verse 25, drive thee, etc. The mental disease of Nebuchadnezzar is rare. It's called lycanthropy, from Greek's lukos, a wolf, and anthropos, a man, because the man imagines himself to be a wolf or some other animal. Verse 27, counsel equals advice, not the same word as in Daniel 3:24 and Daniel 3:27, Daniel 4:36 and Daniel 6:7. Break off, this is rendered in the Vulgate, the authorised version of the Church of Rome, by redeem. But the Chaldee, para, equals breaking off. First occurs in Hebrew, parak, and Genesis 27:40, Exodus 32:2, Exodus 32:3, Exodus 32:4, etc. Seen out in Psalm 136:24. Righteousness. This is rendered as almsgiving in the Vulgate, but the Chaldee tzidkah, Hebrew tzedakah. Righteousness never signifies alms or almsgiving. Iniquities, Chaldee, Ifyar, same as Appendix 44. Poor, wretched and miserable, Chaldee, Hana. See note on poverty, Proverbs 6:11, here referring doubtless to the Jewish captives. Verse 30, Great Babylon. The German Orient Society's excavations during recent years have shown how great it was. See Records of the Past, Volume 1, page, etc. That I have built everywhere, this is repeated by Nebuchadnezzar on bricks, pavement, walls, etc. House of the kingdom, the royal palace. Verse 34, I Nebuchadnezzar, etc. Here the king again speaks. This corresponds with the proclamation of verses Daniel 4:1-3, and is the ground of its being made. The Most High, compare verses Daniel 4:17 and Daniel 4:32. I praised, etc. Modern critics have stumbled because Nebuchadnezzar should do this while he was an idolater, but surely it is a token that a great change had taken place,